sky's not blue.
You need to understand that when the time comes, I'm going to be taking over.
Welcome back to the CultHousePodcast. I'm your host, the Scholar of Spite and the Saturday Night Delight, Roger Riddell. Joining me today, back again for the second time, he is the vocalist and guitarist for KENmode, Jesse Mathewson. How you doing today, Jesse?
Oh, I'm alive. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I guess it was like a year ago this month, the last time that we had talked. And you were still kind of like dealing with all of the pandemic, like mental health stuff and all of that. You seem like maybe you're in a little bit of a better place now.
I'd argue I'm angrier than I was then.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, that's not necessarily a good thing. Oh man.
Yeah.
At least I got more to work on, right? More to work on is a good thing.
Yeah. Have you finally been able to get back to like sparring and all of that?
Yes and no. It's been slow because I injured myself back in April. So we basically, after recording the two records that we recorded last fall, we didn't really do a ton for a little bit because that really got finished by January. We had the like final mastered records, and by March I'd scheduled shooting music videos, but like we weren't practicing or anything like that. So we really weren't in shape to do music videos, or at least I specifically wasn't. And this is kind of a long story that I'll end up getting to the point of it all. I've been acknowledging the last bunch of years that I probably need to change the way I behave on stage, because the way I move around hurts my body. And I think my neck is pretty much shot from like 20 years of headbanging and then also like clinch work and stuff like that in Muay Thai. So I'd been to the point where I was getting headaches all the time. Like if I train a certain way, I get a headache. If I do vocals, sometimes I get a headache. So I'm like, I have to fix something. But we just didn't put any time into rehearsing at all before shooting these videos. So like you revert back to doing things the way you normally do, right? And I tensed up my whole body and then went back to training without thinking about it, and something popped in my hip. And it's been a bad year because of that. Granted, there's been other bad things that have been happening, but it's set me back. I was not in a good mind frame probably till like the last month or two.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to the knee thing that I told you about last time we talked, where I was working out way too intensely at the time and not paying as much attention to form as I should. And one day I just felt something in my knee pop, and it was like 2 partial ligament tears.
And how old are you now?
35.
Okay, so not quite as bad as me at 40 now, but like, yeah, the older we get, we need to bake recovery time into it. And I didn't take that seriously, and I'm starting to take it seriously now. Because I can't afford to be set back like that, where I can't train for a couple months. Like I get miserable. And I want to be able to balance doing that with doing music, and yeah, anyway, so we've started to practice for actually doing live shows again, and I've been changing it a little bit. I know I as I said, I can't swing my head around the way I used to. It's just a nightmare. I get immediate migraines, and it's not worth it because no one gives a shit anyway. They don't care about seeing me fling my head around. They just want to hear the songs.
Yeah, I mean the first time that I ever saw you guys back in 2011 at Ultra Lounge at that release show for Atlas Moth. I remember thinking during your all set that it was one of the more intense sets that I've seen, especially like that up close, because I was like right at the front of the stage, and I'm like, you're like right up on the microphone, your eyes are just kind of like bugging, and I'm pretty sure that that at some point during that set you probably like spit on me too, but it's just because like you're like so fucking intense while you're like doing everything. You just got like all of like the spit just like running out of your mouth.
Yeah, that sometimes happens. I apologize. I'm sorry I accidentally got you a little spitty over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Even now, like with the music videos we shot, you know how a lot of bands will kind of like do the lip syncing thing.
Yeah.
I kind of messed around with that, but like it became very apparent very quickly with this round with the degree, the quality to which we were filming it in, because I guess it was like that ultra high def, like cinematic style. And if I didn't actually like do the vocals, it looked shitty. And the more I leaned into it, the better it looked, because I was actually performing. So yeah, some of the lighting on that stuff, like it just, you see the spit flying regardless. And I'm like not trying to do that. It just stuff comes out.
And you all are a four-piece now. Catherine Kerr has joined the band. And how is that working out with the live shows? Because I know you all have been trying to rework some of your older material so that she's kind of like just not standing there during those songs too.
That's been the ultimate project for this year. And I mean, the things we've done over the last couple months, I think it's working. Part of how we incorporated her as a full-time member was I started messing around with synthesizers a lot more from like later 2019, and a lot of the writing I was doing in 2020, I was fucking around with those as kind of backing tracks, weird atmospheric textures, blah 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 blah. And I mean, she played saxophone on our Love record, and we always wanted to be able to bring her on the road, but it wasn't really worth it for her to play 2 songs with us. So we ultimately lucked out because she's a multi-instrumentalist. She knows how to play keyboard, synthesizer, piano, saxophone, guitar, like you name it, she could probably play it. And with that in mind, I figured like if she was down for the cause, I could give her a whole bunch of things that she could play, and then we could actually tour as a 4-piece, because there's nothing quite like live saxophone in music like this. Like I personally think it's one of the most violent sounding instruments there is. And I mean, no greater example than a lot of the jazz from since it started getting dissonant. You can see countless examples like Coltrane and that ilk, where it's basically like an assault weapon. And that's the way we make her treat it. So it'll be really nice to actually do that live. And the fact that she has a whole bunch of things to do on all the old songs too now, we kind of rewrote those to make them make sense as a 4-piece. So I'm excited to see how people react to some of those old songs in this new format, because I think they sound immense now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are one of the things that I always kind of associate with you all is this really like dense, crushing, like low end, and I feel like the saxophone complements that much more.
Mm-hmm. Plus, as like historically as a 3-piece, like we have and this has been part of the trick to trying to work in a 4th person is we've historically tried to fill things out with the guitar and bass in a way that it doesn't really warrant having another instrument. So trying to place it into the overall mix has been tricky, but something like a saxophone automatically, I just feel like it fits easily because it's almost like a different vocal that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that that I was thinking of, before we got on here tonight was that it's like good that we're like past this whole like stage from, I want to say like even as recently as like a decade ago, where uh if there was a female member of a band, it was almost kind of like seen as a gimmick by some people. And you had
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm glad that we're like past that at this point, because I can remember when you had like some publications that did like hottest chicks in metal and things like that, and it's just like, dude, they're just like musicians too.
Yeah. And I was actually literally just talking about this with my partner yesterday, because we've been trying to source as many bands in the cities that we're playing on this upcoming tour that hasn't been announced yet. We're trying to kind of handpick different bands from the regions that we want to play with to make it almost so it like feels like a mini festival in every city that we're playing. And like most of the bands that we're wanting to play with have women in the bands now. And I've seen memes about it, and I've seen even just people from the millennial generation talking about it, that the joke was that what was it? Why didn't anyone tell us until Gen Z that women were allowed to be good at their instruments? Which I mean is a joke, but like it's been really awesome seeing the number of women that are playing in extreme music now, like completely unabashedly, like as you said, like the gimmick thing is gone, which is awesome because they're arguably more pissed off than anyone else anyway. Like,
Rightfully so.
that have just had to deal with so much shit for so long, and finally more of them being encouraged to use something like this as an outlet. It's coming, like the amount of just bands spewing just absolute pure vitriol is so refreshing. And I to a degree, I almost feel like I'm worn out on dudes yelling in bands, which, and I know that might sound put on or whatever, but like, especially women not trying to sound like men in heavy bands, which you very much are seeing like a renaissance of right now. And I think it's really, really cool. I hope none of that came across as oddly sexist, because it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I mean that's always kind of the risk with that conversation too, is like not always like knowing where the lines are, but I think that like people kind of know when you have good intentions and when you don't,
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where the future of this music goes too, because I think there's a lot of really cool ideas that are spiraling around that weren't before, and it's simply as a matter of the fact that there's more women in the scene now.
Yeah. I mean, part of it kind of ties back to a conversation that we had several years ago when you played DC, where we were just kind of like joking around, like, is anyone like younger than us still that angry about anything? And
yeah, and then a whole tsunami of shit happened. I mean, it's not like people weren't angry anyway, but like, yeah, wow, it's been a time, hasn't it?
yeah, and it's interesting too that it's kind of like colliding with these sort of revivals of like heavy music that are coming from things like, I guess most recently, people rediscovering Master of Puppets through Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, if that's the way kids are getting into Metallica, it's a lot cooler than the Black Album.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Black Album's not that bad, I don't think.
No, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, compared to what everything that came after it, it's great, but I was never a fan of the Black Album when I was a kid. And I mean, Master of Puppets is a legit thrash album. So if that's your gateway, that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, yeah. It was always as far as the early stuff. I love Master of Puppets, love Ride the Lightning, but and Justice for All was where it was always at for me, even though the bass is missing.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's all about Ride the Lightning. That's the one.
Yeah, I was watching a video earlier today of the video is just called Metallica's Cursed Song, and it was several different video clips from a show where they were trying to play Ride the Lightning, and the power to different things on the stage kept going out during the song. It's like, of all the songs that this could have happened during, it's that one.
Sounds about right. I've definitely played shows like that, and one that comes to mind, I think it was the one and only time we played Reno. We kept blowing the PA, and we ended up, I think we had like 3 songs get cut because the power went out, and then we decided to try playing Never Was, and then the power cut on that, and Shane threw his sticks, and we just walked off. Like, we're not doing this again. We're never playing Reno again either.
So yeah, tell me about the new album. I know that you all recorded 2 new albums, and I know last year when we talked, you had mentioned that you had enough material for 2. So how is all of that working out as far as, you've got both of them recorded, but I guess you're staggering the releases?
Yeah, we kind of figured that no one really wants or needs a double album of ours, and if we put something like that out, we'd be stabbing/shooting ourselves in the foot, because it would be very expensive to make, and people would probably only listen to like a quarter of it, and then we'd have wasted all that material. And we were able to actually craft 2 well thought out albums out of all the material too. Like, they fit together as one giant piece, but then they also do very well as 2 separate distinct works that sound different too. So yeah, it just kind of ended up working out that way. A lot of the material off the record that's coming out this year, the Null record, most of it I think was written in 2020. We fine-tuned things in 2021, but a lot of the next record, the Void record, was more material that was written in 2021. So together they are Null and Void, but we really haven't talked about Void that much, just because Null is yet to be released. But that's the way we worked it out.
Yeah, and is there any sort of I guess, like, little kind of differences between the 2 as far as the writing, or maybe like the general like sound of things, as far as how you decided what went on one versus the other?
Mostly as a result of how the songs were put together and the timing. Null, most of the record I wrote on my own, simply because we weren't really rehearsing. And then most of Void we wrote as a band, or at least Scott and I wrote the bulk of the riffs for. So there's definitely a distinct difference in feeling between the 2. The first one, Null, kind of feels a little bit more discordant and crazed, more of a, I think, reaction to the way everyone was feeling in 2020, like just not really knowing what the hell was going on, and a degree of frantic fear and anger. And then Void, I feel like, is the companion to the way we felt the next year, just the profound sadness and disappointment in everyone and everything. And I think that shines through a lot on that material.
Yeah, and with the stuff that you wrote largely on your own, you mentioned earlier that you had gotten really into messing around with like synths and things like that. And I know last year when we talked, you had mentioned that you had gone down like a Nine Inch Nails rabbit hole to some extent. How much did that kind of influence the way that you experimented with writing with like synths and things like that?
Oh, you'll all just have to see. It's definitely was at the forefront of a lot of the ways I approached writing for some of this stuff. I don't think any of it sounds like Nine Inch Nails at all. So with having that in mind, I'm very curious to see how people interpret the material that was written when that was very clearly an influence on me. Because I mean, shy of maybe one of them where you go like, okay, I could hear it there, but like the rest of it, it ends up getting processed through our psychotic, noisy clusterfuck anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the addition of the saxophone and things like that, though, can kind of like point back to that, because it's still in its own way, like Nine Inch Nails is kind of a melding of discordant sound, and you all are doing that in like a much more like pummeling kind of way.
Mm. Like if Nine Inch Nails listen to a lot of the Melvins.
Yeah, so you'll have 2 singles out so far for the new album. The first one, A Love Letter, when I listen to it, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Your Heartwarming Story Makes Me Sick. From the standpoint of like, I guess kind of the structure, because it has, you know, that pummeling beginning of it, but then it's kind of got the kind of like smart ass like spoken stuff closer to the end. And in both of those songs, like those parts are probably my favorite parts of it. But tell me a little bit about like that song and the influences that went into it, because like the lines that stick out to me in that song are, you know, it was a mistake to ask me for help, which I think is I always like read a lot into people's lyrics, and I think that line is the way that like I read it is, or heard it, because I was thinking of like just that in the context of the title, A Love Letter. And it's like, I think sometimes we reach these points in relationships where we're like, I'm the wrong person to be helping this other person right now, you know what I mean?
That's a really cool way to read into that. With that song, I've been making a point of not explaining myself on any of it, because I know there's so many statements in that song that people are going to try to place in the context of either their life or something else that's going on. And I don't want to spoil any of it, because it legitimately, it's always fascinating when people interpret your lyrics and can filter it through their own life experience. And I love hearing about it, because it's like, that's fucking wild. And that is not even remotely close to where I was coming from. And a lot of the time I don't want to disappoint people with where it may have been coming from, because it's probably some kind of joke that we came up with, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the other line in that song that stuck out to me is, I'd like to congratulate you for buying into the exact same narrative as everyone else. And that, I think, is what made me think of Your Heartwarming Story Makes Me Sick, because there's a line in that song, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's about struggling to fulfill like your partner's desires for like the bigger house and, you know, all these material things. And it kind of reminded me of a conversation that I had with a friend a while back, because there's a male and female side of that, because there's like the male side where you get trapped in that scenario, and then there's the female side where being trapped in that scenario is, oh, I'm stuck in this like suburban hell where I'm basically a caretaker for children now, and I've sacrificed whatever I wanted for that.
Or the flip side of the moneymaker, right? I know with Heartwarming Story, I know I started changing the lyrics to that one line when we play it live, because you know how the one on the album had just so your wife can have a bigger fucking house, and then I changed it so that the second line it would repeat with just so your man can have a bigger fucking house. just depending on who's making the money, what kind of relationship you're in, blah, 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 blah. I thought it was a funnier spin. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a commonality between the lines like that in each song. If that's where I'm coming from on Love Letter.
I mean, I think that the other song, But They Respect My Tactics, is kind of a little bit more straightforward to interpret in some ways.
Yeah, I
The
think so
thing that
too.
I got from that is that it's basically about like social media and all the doom scrolling that we got like pulled into.
Some of it, yeah. And
Yeah.
also just the fact that you can make up your own reality, and that ultimately none of it matters anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of been the most bizarre thing of the last couple of years, is just seeing this, like, I guess sort of mass breakdown among certain segments of the population as far as like being able to think rationally and logically about things, or
Yeah,
accept
it's
what's clearly in front of you.
it's been terrifying, and I don't see it getting better. I mean, I think there's been a lot of emotional trauma that's been inflicted throughout the pandemic, and I don't think the way our society behaves with everything to do with being online will allow it to correct itself. So I don't feel terribly hopeful for the future of our species unless some very massive changes happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the probably best things that could happen for our species would be if somehow all of social media just like crashed and couldn't be brought back up, because it's the best way that I've heard it stated was that before social media, the dumbest person in your town was just the dumbest person in your town on their own. They didn't know that there were other dumbest people in other towns that they could all connect with, and now they're all connected.
Mm-hmm. And the insanity is just to a whole other level now. And then they block hospitals because they believe that they're the root of all evil and causing people to get microchipped. And I just can't, man. I just can't. It's been too much. The last year has been too much.
And it's just like when you think that it can't get crazier, something makes it crazier.
Yeah. And even just a lot of the institutions that we've always kind of relied on, I feel like those are crumbling. Like, I know our medical system's still completely fucked. Like, things are not getting better. And I mean, we knew it was breaking while the pandemic was happening, and the people working within it were telling us it's breaking us. And I don't know why people just kind of expected things to go back to normal. You can't just break shit and then expect it to magically be fixed. You need to fix it. I just anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of very technical things that people like us are not ever going to be in any position to be able to fix, and probably wouldn't be able to fix if we tried.
No, and I mean, I honestly, I don't want to. I don't. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm only 40, and I feel like George Carlin at 70, where I don't have a pony in the race anymore. I just want to sit back and watch it all fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the situation that we're all in at this point, I guess.
Unless you're a breeder, then you got to do something so your kids aren't fucked.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how much you care about whether or not they're fucked, but
I mean, there are a lot of selfish people, so fair enough.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are just like, I'll be dead by the time that they have to worry about this, so it's not my problem.
Yeah, they can figure it out. Sure. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Was I more optimistic last year? I don't remember.
I think It was about the same, but you were much more low energy, I think.
Oh no, that doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah. I mean, I've been like so 2.5 weeks ago now, I moved back to Chicago, and uh I've been like kind of tiptoeing this line of being excited to be back here, but then also adjusting to it because it still doesn't feel real. And it's
Yeah,
also just kind of like, this is the thing that I wanted for a long time, but every time I get something that I wanted for a long time, the other shoe drops eventually. And
yeah,
so I'm kind of just like wary of that right now, but also like getting acclimated to everything here again.
that is. I mean, I have always lived that way, specifically in the context of this band. Anytime anything good happens, it's like it's certainly fleeting. And when is the other foot gonna, or when is the other shoe gonna drop? Because things aren't meant to go well for us. So there's always got to be a catch. I try to work as hard as I can to minimize the damage of whatever consequences there are, but there's always going to be something. There's
Yeah.
always going to be. So let's get out on the road and go on tour again.
Yeah, so I know you probably can't say too much about the US touring plans yet, but how does it feel like knowing that you're about to get back into all of that, and how do you feel like your hip is holding up for all of that right now?
We'll see with my hip. God damn. Why you got to remind me about that? I hope it'll be okay. I mean, I've been doing more rehab exercises, and I'm not in consistent pain right now, so I think it should be okay. But we do have a lot more practice to go through. I'm oddly mildly hopeful about touring the US again, simply because like I think it's mostly the place that we hold in the scene right now, because like we've the last bunch of years we've been like kind of a lower middle sized band. Like we're far from a big band, but we're also not a little band. But I couldn't say that we're like a solid second on a third 3-band package type thing. We don't bring that much to the table that we'd be that second to headliner thing. But we're in that position where if we do go on a tour, we probably can get some pretty like cool smaller bands. So like it would be appropriate for them to open for us. And I think we're trying to flex that a little bit, because most of the bands that I find interesting right now are kind of in that, like if you go up to their Spotify, they'll have like 1,500 to 2,000 monthly listeners. Like that's kind of the pocket of the bands that I generally like. But those also aren't really bands that have very good tours when they go out on their own. And we're more so in that like 15 to 25,000 listeners per month kind of range. So we're like kind of a shitty headliner, but at least we can do like cool shows when we go out. So I'm excited to see a lot of the bands that I'm hopefully lining up for us to play with, because it's kind of all the cool shit that I like that's going on in the US. And like I've hardly been out of my own city since 2019, so I'm going fucking crazy. I need to go do something. I need to eat tacos. I need Southern barbecue. I very much need to just get the hell out of here and be with my people. Like this community has been such a big part of my entire adult life, and being totally cut off from it for 3 years has not been good.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way just from like the other end of the spectrum when I was able to start going back to shows like late last year. And you kind of like appreciate it that much more, because I think before the pandemic I just kind of like gotten a little bit jaded to the fact that like, oh, this is just a thing that I can go do if I feel like it. But now it's like, oh, this could like not happen
Yeah.
for, you know, a year or more, just, you know, like the snap of a finger.
Yeah. And I mean, for people who've been doing the thing as long as we have, like, to have it not be allowed to be done was pretty a tough pill to swallow. And I know there are plenty of people in society that I don't generally have anything to do, don't give a shit about going to see things like live music, but like, this has obviously been my life since I was a teenager. So I say fuck you to all those people who fucked us up for us. I still harbor a lot of anger toward everyone who caused the false starts, stretched this out longer than it needed to be. I wish they could have been out of work. I wish that all their favorite things would have been canceled. Just fuck you forever. And then to complain when you're not invited to the unveiling parties and people going back to going to shows. Like, what do you mean vaccination cards? Like, yeah, there is one. Fuck you. Fuck you. You did not, it's the old, what is it? The little red hen. You did not help me bake this bread. Fuck you. I think I need to paraphrase.
Yeah, I mean, it's the combination though of being able to go back to shows and then seeing how the last 2 years kind of influenced a lot of the music that has come out since things started to pick back up again. I've kind of like tried to look at that as a little bit of a silver lining to everything, and that as much as the last few years sucked, it fueled a lot of really good like new material from people.
I hope so. Some of it has. Some of it's also terrible garbage. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was always the case though. There's like,
yeah.
I think it's like 50-50. It's always been kind of 50-50, like terrible garbage versus you know, good stuff. Depending on your taste though.
Yeah. And again, I feel like, I don't know, just lately, the more popular any bands get, the more watered down and shitty they get. I don't know. I've been with so many of the bands that have been like scene darlings for so long. I'm just so disillusioned with how bordering on insincere some of the new material sounds. I don't know. I don't want anything to do with popular underground music anymore.
Yeah.
Take me back to obscurity. It's been interesting this whole time we've been here. I don't know whether there's a ring going in my house right now, but like I hear this like tinnitus style in the background the entire time, and it's super unnerving.
What if it's like the beginning of like a Shining type of thing, where you're just kind of like slowly descending into madness?
This is where you find out when we get off the call, I kill my partner when she gets home. What the fuck happened to that dude? They canceled their tours. He's in Canadian jail. Oh God. No, I promise I'm not gonna do that.
I like that you specified Canadian gel. Like it's like it's markedly different than other gel. It's a little bit politer.
They don't beat you as much. Like I'd know anything about any jails anyway. Yeah. Yeah, one of the most eventful things that happened to me this week actually pertains to everything relating to our US tour, where I submitted our work applications for getting like a working visa in the States like a month ago. And I followed up this week to make sure everything was okay. And they never reached their destination for processing. They got lost in Canada Post's system. So it's a good thing that I do these things like 4 months in advance, because I had to do like a rush submit all new paperwork to get processed. Just, this is the story of my life, and what I was talking about with the institutions that are crumbling. Like something like that, I paid for like, it was 3 business days, and the fucking thing gets lost.
Yeah, I heard that it's, I know last year it was a pain in the ass for bands from outside the US to come in to do anything. So I don't know how, like, is that like gotten easier to any extent, like as far as like getting in and out of between Canada and the US?
Canada and the US, Canada's got a different situation than most of the world. I know Europeans, it costs a huge amount of money and it takes way longer, but I know Canada and the US both utilize the American Federation of Musicians, and they have a cultural exchange program between the 2 countries that they facilitate the processing of work permits for, and basically the vouching of artists. So it's cheaper for us to get work visas than most of the world, but we still have to do it. Unlike American bands coming to Canada, they don't have to do that anymore. So it's just the classic, we're America, we're bigger, we're what matters, fuck you. we just say, yes, thank you, sir. Here, I'll bend over. I'll give you my money. So we get to do that. We get to pay $1,500 every time we want to try and tour in the States, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, $1,500 compared to, say, like $10,000 that I think some bands from Europe usually have to pay at the least. Like, we're getting off easy, and whatever. At least we get to come and play shows and probably catch COVID.
It's kind of like a party favor at this point, I guess.
Yeah, we that big Primitive Man tour was just through here, like, God, coming up on a month ago. But I was talking to Dave from Full of Hell, and he was saying that every tour he's been on since things opened up, he's come back with COVID. So it's just an inevitability now. So you go on tour and you come back with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of impressed with some of the different tours that have managed to kind of make it all the way through without like a clearly noticeable hitch.
Yeah, I think at least from what we were witnessing in the US in like November and December when Omicron was blowing up, people were still canceling tours at that point. But I think after a lot of people experienced the severity of what Omicron actually had to offer, lots of bands stopped disclosing when they got COVID as a result, because people weren't getting very sick, and people always get sick on tour anyway. So I feel like there was quite a few tours in the spring that people probably got sick on and just didn't say anything about it, because it's like, fuck that. I'm not canceling the tour for a sore throat, because that is the truth of the matter at this point, right? And yeah, it's spreading the thing and everyone's fucking getting it and it's all part of the problem. But at what point are we going to go, like, straight up, I'm not canceling a month's worth of work because I have a sore throat this morning.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with a friend about something similar to that earlier, where it's like I'm right now with like the whole point that this is basically going to become endemic and be a thing that we have to live with, and it's just going to be like a seasonal thing that flares up off and on.
Well, that is what the general flu that circulates, that is the pandemic from 1918.
Yeah, because like I was talking to a friend earlier about how, like, basically I can remember when I was a kid in like the late 80s, early 90s, my grandparents and like other people their age always talked about the flu, like getting it was like a 50-50 chance that you were going to die. But like I've never had to think of it that way in like my entire life, because it's just a thing that you get and most people get over it. I know there's like, you know, like tens of thousands of deaths from it every year, but it's not like
a lot. It kills a lot of people.
Yeah. Like I
That
think
is
what I was
the
reading
wi-
earlier,
that-
yeah.
that's
I think
the
what I was
fucking
reading earlier
wild
is that
thing.
the projection for like endemic COVID right now would be like maybe in the neighborhood of 100,000 deaths a year, which is still a lot of fucking people, but it's not at the level that it was because we have all these vaccines and treatments and everything now. So it seems like it's over time basically going to be like our generation's flu.
Yeah, and it is kind of crazy just in the fact that we're for the last 2 years been paying attention to this stuff so intently. Like, when was the last time you ever looked at like flu stats in your life and what the mortality rate of the flu is? Why would you ever care, right?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of wild because, yeah, with stuff like that, you do at some point have to put it into context. And I know that was one of the things everyone loved to argue about early on in COVID. It's just like the flu. It's just like the flu. Like, fuck, it's not. So shut the fuck up. But at a certain point, it will be. But that's not now. And you cheated off me in high school science, so please never talk to me again. Like, anyway. And then there's the other side that of people who are still terrified to go anywhere. Like, I'm just so burnt out. Just so burnt out.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's getting better though. Like I've been optimistic about things in general. I guess for the last several months because there's basically vaccines available for like every age level now. So we're basically at the point where it's like this is all down to people taking responsibility for themselves at this point. And you hope that people are responsible, but you also can't force people to be responsible because of the way that our society is set up. If you want the idea of freedom, but I say the idea of freedom because to what extent are any of us actually free?
Not really. I just hope people, if you're feeling shitty and you have to work, just wear a mask. If you're feeling shitty, like that's not that much to ask, is it?
Especially in a lot of more white collar jobs now. If you're in like any of those fields, a lot of those companies now are even more amenable to the idea of you working from home if you don't feel well.
Yeah. So just please do it and don't go to
Yeah.
a show. Don't get people sick. Yeah, it'd be nice to not have to worry about going to a show and just that. I know I'm going to get COVID in the States. I know it. It's for sure going to happen. I'm going to get another booster, but I still haven't had it yet. I don't know about you. I somehow have been like, I've had pretty good head moving, good lean back. It hasn't caught me yet, but it's caught most people around me. I haven't got sick. Maybe I fought it off. I don't know, but I haven't been sick yet. And I know tour is going to get me sick.
Yeah. I mean, I've only taken 2 COVID tests since this whole thing started and they were both negative, but I mean, it's entirely within the realm of possibility that I could have had it and been asymptomatic or like barely symptomatic. Cause I've been going to the gym like 4 times a week since July 2020, like, back to an actual gym. And since May 2021, I've been going to the gym 4 times a week, like totally unmasked, just around people that are breathing heavily, not really paying as much attention as they previously were to like social distancing. And then like since November, I've been going to packed shows. And the last time that I had to wear a mask at one of those, like if there's still like a mask requirement, or if I'm, like, oh, this might not be like the best scenario to be unmasked in, I'm probably going to put a mask on. But the last like 4 months or so of going to shows, like I've just gone unmasked because I was just like, I'm I've accepted the risks by being here, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I also just don't get sick that frequently though. Like it's been 21 years since I like puked. I haven't puked from anything in 21 years.
That's pretty wild. I I mean, the only times I'd get sick normally was if I wasn't sleeping enough because of something like being on tour, or it's always my goddamn friends who have kids, and those kids are always getting sick, and they get them sick, and then they bring that to like the gym or something like that. And then, of course, because I'm working hard, I'm gonna catch whatever the fuck that is. But yeah, I haven't. I guess I kind of caught a cold. When was that? I caught something in May actually, and I thought I tested negative like 5 times, so it wasn't COVID, and it was something super benign too. But like it kind of knocked me on my ass because I hadn't been sick in years at this point. But yeah, that's been one of the funny things about the way the pandemic's affected everything. Like my partner got, I guess, a flu last November, December. And again, not COVID, but it kicked the shit out of her. And it's just with our immune systems not working because we're not exposed to anything. When you do get something, it just goes overboard. And it's been wild. Like I had an allergic reaction, I think, to pollen last summer. And I had almost like an asthma attack. And like, I've never been asthmatic in my entire life. And again, it's one of those things where you're coughing and you can't breathe. It's like, oh my God, I have COVID. Nope. But it was a legit allergic reaction to something super stupid. Not stoked to see how this continues to develop.
Yeah. I mean, the usually the times that I'll get like a cold or something will be if I try to like slow down and relax. Anytime I try to slow down and relax, I inevitably get some kind of cold. But the last time that I got like sick in a way that it knocked me on my ass was the fall before the pandemic, because I had to go on a work trip to Boston in August of 2019. And while I was up there, I decided I was going to do a stand-up set at an open mic night at some bar.
Right.
And the dude running the open mic night asked me to stay and do a second set on like their late show, where people in the crowd basically like yell out premises for you to tell jokes around on the spot. And by that point, I was like fairly buzzed. And so I don't remember any of my setup for what led to this. But basically, the punchline to some joke that I was telling was me sticking a microphone into my mouth to simulate a blowjob. So about a week after that, I just get like this respiratory infection where I've got like a fever and everything, and I can't get out like a full sentence without like coughing fits. This lasted for like a month or a month and a half. And every time that I went to like urgent care or made a doctor's appointment, they would just be like, oh yeah, it's just some kind of viral respiratory infection. You just got to wait it out. And I'm like, it's been like this for like several weeks now. I don't know how long I was supposed to wait. Can you just give me like antibiotics in case it's bacterial? And eventually like one of the doctors did, and it went away in like a few weeks. But yeah, but it like flared up again maybe like 2 months later, when I was like home visiting for the holidays. And the running joke between me and a few other people has been that I had like proto-COVID, because it was like right before the pandemic actually happened.
Yeah, I got a sinus infection right before the pandemic. And again, I caught it from a dude who had a kid at the gym. Very fascinating stuff. Us just talking about getting sick now to end the podcast.
I mean, there's worse topics. Yeah, what's the date that Null is dropping?
September 23rd. Yeah. So we're at what? It's like 2 months away.
Yeah. Yeah, and y'all are doing pre-orders on your Bandcamp?
That we are Bandcamp and KEN-mode.com, which is it's our website, but it's getting fulfilled through the label. We run a Shopify account, which can connect to like Spotify and Facebook and all that stuff. So that's why we're selling the pre-orders through our site too, because it's easy.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of have to appreciate about all of this now, is that it's easier than ever before. Definitely easier than, when we were like teenagers, to get whatever kind of music you want.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I remember the local record store in my hometown. It was run by one dude, and I got to know him pretty well over the years, because I shopped there for like 11 or 12 years before it had to close, and like he died from a heart attack right before he was gonna have to close it for good. But I can remember having to ask him about whether he could get in an album that I was looking for, if it was something that wouldn't just be ordered by default. And he'd be like, oh yeah, I can get you that. And he would just like call his distributor, and like 2 days later, he'd be like, I got this for you now.
Yeah, those were the days, my friend. Those were the days. Now we're those old men. Yeah, showing up, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, seeing what the new releases were. What are the hot imports? Back then, everything was an import.
Do you remember when you used to be able to like hunt down the import version of an album, and it would have additional tracks on it?
Yeah. I mean, they still do that all the time in Japan. But it costs a fortune to get those now.
Yeah. I mean, you would have bands that would have like the Japanese version, and then sometimes they'd have the UK version, and both of those import versions had different bonus tracks on them.
Yeah, back when CDs were everything.
And I still buy everything on CD.
Yeah, I moved back to it mostly, I guess, a little before the pandemic, but yeah, just to ship vinyl to Canada, it sucks so fucking much. Like, I was actually just looking at what's the band called? Anyway, something that was on 31G today, and they're selling the LP for $24.99, and shipping to Canada was $27.90 something. I was like, I can't justify this. I know it doesn't cost that much to ship an LP to Canada. Someone just doesn't care. And I mean, that's fine. I'll try and pick it up when I'm on tour. It just sucks. Because and like the exchange rate right now, the $1 US is like $1.30 Canadian. So ordering something like that would be like a $75 LP for me. Like, not fucking worth it. Everything's all fucked, man.
Well, I don't want to hold you up too much longer, because we're actually on the same time zone now, so I don't have to like do the math to figure out. I mean, I would have been later than you before when I was in DC.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, I just don't want to hold you up too late into your evening. But is there anything else you want to put out there?
I mean, look out for us touring the States. We're going to be down there late October, early November, mostly Midwest. Like, we're basically driving from like Winnipeg straight down to Texas, and then all along the East Coast, and then looping back. So unfortunately, the West Coast is getting neglected, but we'll figure something out for them in the future. But all I can say is be on the lookout. Check out KENmode.com. Follow us on all the things. We'll have more cool stuff for the next like 2 years. We'll just be constantly releasing things because we have too much music.
And let me know when you figure out the Chicago date too, and I'll make sure I bring you guys bread again.
Sick. October 22nd. I know that's for sure. Saturday night in Chicago.
All right. I don't know if that's supposed to be out there yet or not, but I can bleep that out if it's not.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
I think we're supposed to be announcing the whole thing on the 27th. So depending on how quickly you get this up, that's a sneak preview.
It was good catching up with you.
Likewise, man. And I guess I'll see you in October, hopefully.